Hi, hello, and welcome to LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun, and I'm Arjuna Shankar. You're listening to the new series of current affairs for 2024 examination, which is the editorial summary, which is the most important part for of a newspaper, and yet the most difficult thing that aspirants find it. So it's very important, and a lot of aspirants miss it out. So if you've not downloaded LearnStroke IAS app, please do download it and check out the videos. And just letting you know about the online batch for 2024, which is called the Cloud9. It's completely online, so just reminding you all those concepts. And why are the editorials important? I tell it every day because, as you know, most of the aspirants skip it, and basically because you find it very difficult to understand the editorial. So that is the reason why majority of people avoid this, and it's very important for prelims, mains, and interviews. Lot of questions are ready in this. So let's check out class 2 and what are the important editorials that we have to take a look at that. And the first important editorial was regarding the core comfort. It simply meant core comfort. So this is a very good answer question from GS paper 3 economy. This is very important from GS paper 3 economy because it talks about India's 8 core industries. Very important. This is something that they are always ask in the prelims examination. So you should know that it is important for the prelims examination and also for the mains examination. It's important to have this idea about the core in industries or the core sectors. So let's check out what are the core important sectors. And before that, let's apply the IAS filter and let's check out the answers. So very clearly, we know that there are 8 core sectors in Indian economy. So that is, one is electricity, steel, refinery products, crude oil, coal, cement, natural gas, and fertilizer. So that brings in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 7 and this is the 8. So this forms the core industries. And sometimes, why this is important. This is very important from the prelims perspective. Why from the prelims perspective it is important from the prelims perspective? Because sometimes they might ask you to eliminate this. Which of the following are included in the 8 core sectors? So you need to sometimes eliminate this in the MCQ questions. So please do remember about India's 8 core sectors and the data regarding all this content. You can see that majority of the time the data regarding all this keeps changing, because even in July you might find one information, in August you will get another. So it keeps on changing from time to time. So please do remember that the data can change. So look out for the change in data also. And recently it is actually under the impression that steel, we discussed steel, which has become the third largest constituent of the 8 core industries. So steel is also very important, and it is the third largest component. And electricity, which makes up 1/5 of the core index. So electricity, as you know, is also very important. And the important thing that I really liked about this editorial is the concept of something called as oil Atmanirbharata. And everybody talks about, you must have heard about the self-reliant India, because that is the key concept that I'm trying to explain here. The self-reliant India, or the concept of Atmanirbhar. This is what is the Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this is in this context, it talks about something called as the oil Atmanirbharata. It's very interesting, right? So the country is still heavily reliant on crude oil imports, because India is actually dependent heavily on the crude imports for the fuel needs in India. So that is one reason why India needs to achieve oil Atmanirbharata. And I think this is actually something very interesting that I found it out. And please do check out the 8 core industries in detail. So that was the first important editorial. And moving on to the second important editorial was the dangers in the digital personal data protection bill, or it is very closely called as the DP bill. It's the DP bill, the digital personal data protection bill. So what are the important challenges regarding all this? So what are the important dangers. So as an aspirant, you should be knowing the digital personal data protection bill is actually coming in the news. uh, you should know what is the concept of privacy. The data privacy is very, very important. You must be getting a lot of calls from say a lot of calls from SBI, or even the other insurance agents, PTM, other people who call you, where your data is actually taken. So the question is your data taken with the consent? Is your data taken with your consent? You get a lot of calls. Preferably, you must have seen in the Truecaller phone, you must have seen, you will get a lot of calls, red colored, which are actually colored in red, and which might have written as fraud. So this is actually where your data is taken, your data is being given, and whether it has been given in consent is a different thing, but you get a lot of calls. So you should know in this context, that is your data safe? Is the government of India? That is another important question. The article also talks whether the government is actually taking care of the data. Is the government efficient enough to take care of the data? Do you think there is another privacy violation with the government? So these are the important topics that we need to be understanding in this. So I think these are the let's this is very, very important. From know it from, it's a legal question, so definitely know it from the perspective of GS paper 2. You should know it from the data governance, its governance perspective. You should know what is the important, since it is a bill, you should know how the aspects of polity and governance, data governance is all important in this aspect, so know it from that perspective. And moving on, let's apply the IAS filter and see what are the important aspects that we need to discuss. So one is data. The final draft is actually shrouded in secrecy. The word is secrecy, because there was a big time issue, because a lot of complaints came from the opposition party that uh, sometime before there was a draft bill which was given. And the opposition parties say that as a parliamentary, as a democracy, the people, the representatives did not get an opportunity to debate the bill. They did not get an opportunity to debate the bill in detail. So that was a big problem that they cited. And one of the important negatives that they cited is the importance concept of RTI, because RTI is very, very important, the right to information. So we need to have more debate. The word is more debate on the matters relating to right to information and right to privacy. So you should know that the right to privacy is actually a fundamental right. And in this concept, you should know what is the Sri Krishna Committee. What is the Sri Krishna Committee? You should have an idea. What is the Sri Krishna Committee, and whether right to privacy is a fundamental right or wrong, or a fundamental right or not. And recently, one of the important danger this article talks about is RTI. RTI is very, very important. You can actually get a lot of information from the government when the government institutions are involved. You can actually give an RTI, and any citizen of this country can get information regarding, I will not say anything and everything, but some relating to the government governance, etc. You have the right, every citizen has a right to give an RTI and take necessary information from the concerned office. So this time, the data protection bill of 2022 is actually planning to amend the RTI, which has empowered millions of people since 2005. Since the RTI, everybody is getting a lot of opportunities. So RTI is going to be amended. This is a serious danger according to the data personal bill. So how is that happening? So let's quickly check at that. The RTI has made a big change, and imagine the Supreme Court of India has actually made the citizens right to know the names of willful defaulters and details of non-performing assets. You know what you mean by NPA? If you do not close your loan for over 90 days, your loan becomes NPA. So you have the right to know all the defaulters in India. I mean, what is the status? Who are the people who are basically not paying the money, and what is the status of NPA? You have the right. Supreme Court said. So this is the section of the RTI that we are talking about. Section 8, Clause 1J is being amended. So data protection. So when you talk about data protection, you talk about a lot of personal information. So definitely that involves a lot of personal information. So in this, personal info is very, very important in this. So in this regard, there is a personal information is, according to RTI's 8 clause 1J, personal information is exempt from disclosure. You cannot disclose personal information if it has no relation to any public activity, or if it has no relation to any public interest, or if information sought is such that it would cause unwarranted invasion of privacy, and the information officer whether the information officer is satisfied, then absolutely personal information is exempt from disclosure. You cannot disclose it. So these sections are, from here onwards, it is going to be the enactment of data protection law, therefore does not require any amendment to the existing RTA report, as also noticed by the Justice AP Shah report on privacy. So this is also important for the prelims perspective. If you want to see Justice AP Shah report on privacy, it's a report on privacy. RTI basically do not require any amendment at all. So you should know what you mean by RTA, obviously. So the DPDP Bill 2000 proposes amendments to the Article 8 Clause 1J, and you know why? This has created a big debate. Why should you actually compromise? Why should you actually open up? If you open up, a lot of your data will be taken away. And even the article says that the government needs to be checked. Even the government needs to be checked according to the courts, because the central government can exempt any government or any private sector entity. So the central government can actually do that. So if you're talking about a law, or a regulation, it needs to be 100% foolproof. It needs to be 100% just. The rule and regulation should be 100% just. So in that case, when the central government itself has the power to exempt and qualify a particular government or a private entity according to the interest, don't you think 100% justness is lost? This is what the opposition and the critics are saying. Even it can exempt UID, the Unique Identification Authority of India. Maybe it can say that at certain time you do not have to comply with certain rules. So that is also an important aspect, the danger that the critics are actually telling. So and next one was regarding the oversight body setup under the legislation has to be independent to act on violations. So this is the most important things that every body or every law or a body that is come into place should be independent. Should be independent means that no minister or no MP or anybody who is in power can or should influence the independence of the body. The body should actually work independently. Nobody should actually influence that. But according to the digital personal data protection bill, you will notice that the data protection board is very important. There should be a data protection board, the institution responsible for enforcement of the provisions of the law. So the data protection board itself, the central government is empowered to determine the strength and composition of the board. Is it a good thing? The central government has decided who should actually be a part of this board, as well as the process of selection and removal of its chairperson and other members. So it is a duty of the. So do you agree with this? Whether you agree or not, that is your choice. That should be your idea. But do you imagine that? Is it a good move? Central government can take away all of the powers. The ruling government can do that, and it is fully controlled by the government. That means the data protection board even has the power to impose around 500 crore fine. It has the power to impose 500 crore fine. So such body, don't you think the body should be independent? So that is what do you feel? What is your opinion? That is very important. So these are some of the dangers the data protection board and the changes that they want to bring in the RTI. So can actually be, so these are some of the biggest dangers that this article talks about, the digital personal data protection bill. So let's take quick questions. What are the objectives of data protection laws? What are the objectives of data protection laws? How can it protect the right to privacy? So this is a good question for the mains. You should actually practice it. RTI Act in India has given granular information for the common man to get various benefits. Examine the statement. So do you think RTI was very successful? And also you can even know, you should know how was the RTI successful? Because the RTI was very successful. So you should be knowing how RTI was very successful. And as a master checklist, you should find out the answer on your own. For next prelims, you should be expecting this question: know about RTI in detail. What do you mean by social audit? Because the article was concerning about social audit. And what is right to privacy? Is it a fundamental right? What are the important aspects? And know complete details about the DPDP bill or the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. And the other important aspect has to be learned. So that was an important editorial that we discussed. And moving on to the next one is something very interesting as regarding the bus ride to equality, the wheels of change in Karnataka. So it's actually a very interesting scheme. So what is the Shakti scheme? Very important. You should know what is the Shakti scheme. And this basically talks about GS paper 1. You can call it as GS paper 1 because it talks about the role of women. It talks about the role of women, and it talks about patriarchy. So that definitely talks about the Indian society. It talks about GS paper 1 patriarchy. And as a GS paper 2, it talks about various welfare activities that needs to be done. So it talks about various welfare activities that needs to be done. So GS paper 1, role of women, society, and GS paper 2, welfare. And even you can call it as the governance area. It is actually certain governance areas are actually being discussed here. So what are the governance areas that we need to be understanding? So let's take a quick look at it. Let's apply the IAS filter first, and let's take the important points here. And here we go. The Shakti scheme in Karnataka. So all of you, if you have read the newspaper, you must have seen that it is derived from a confront the realities of a patriarchal society. So do you think women are oppressed in India? Do you think women get equal opportunities? So women can travel free on state buses. Very, very important. The aim is to make transport more accessible and safer for women. Do you think this is a good move? So Karnataka has taken a good move. That means women can actually travel in buses, in the state bus, in the state owned government buses, free of cost and in a very safer manner. And this is actually bring women into public life and make public space less male. So it completely article talks about patriarchy. And even if you go into a park, you will see more men than women. So is public life more dominated by men? And why do you think women is not dominating? And even in not only in Karnataka, in 2019, government of Delhi also gave up this concept of free travel for women passengers. And in 2021, the government of Punjab and even the government of Tamil Nadu introduced a similar policy. So always understand it is not Karnataka. You have with it, you have Delhi in the line, and you have Punjab, and you have Punjab inside that, and apart from that, Punjab and also Tamil Nadu. You should know Tamil Nadu is also part of that. So is this scheme good? When I ask this scheme good, there will be a lot of positive and negative. Some people will say that it's a very good, but a lot of people will say that it is going to have a lot of impact on the finance in the finance ministry, especially the budget of the government, because a lot of money, lot of income that the transport sector wanted to get is actually lost. So do you believe that a lot of finance, this is a waste of money? Do you think it is a waste of money? That is your thought. And some people will say that this is a violation of the constitution. Do you think article 15 of the constitution, the article 15 of the constitution, discrimination? Because how many of you feel that how many of you actually, you can actually comment also, how many of you feel that the men are being discriminated here every times women are given more opportunities? So do you think it is a violation of article 15? It is a violation of constitution. It's an important question that you should understand. So let's quickly check out the other, because a lot of people say that this is not discrimination, because, and it has nothing to do with the finance, because it is actually being given. If government can give free roads, the roads are not charged. If government can give free education, if government can give free health, then why not free transportation? If everything is actually free, why not give transportation? And taxpayers money, everything on free education, all of this works in the taxpayers money. So what is wrong in actually having the women actually going to the buses? And why are men left out? Is it the right ideology? And so what about, do you think do you think men are not taken care properly? And article 15 of the Indian constitution prohibits discrimination on specified grounds including sex. So your gender is also a part, and your gender needs to be, you need to have equality, and it is actually even having a discrimination answer. Do you article 15? But there is another important aspect, taking into consideration India's past and India's history. Very important, taking into consideration India's history of oppression towards women and the patriarchy that exists in India. So definitely the patriarchy that exists in India, you should know that special provision needs to be done for women and children. So Article 15, Clause 3 allows the state to make special provisions for women and children, and the special provision allows the state to include measures that range from free bus travel to reservation of women in employment, education, or even in politics. Everything is actually justified by 15 Clause 3. So, taking taking into account the history of India, and even the patriarchy, the patriarchal mindset of India, and the history of oppression of women in India, you say that such 15 Clause 3, whether it is a violation or not. So definitely you can say that Shakti scheme is a good thing. So again, it's up to you. Do you think it is a good scheme? If not, you can actually comment why do you think it is not good. So moving on to the question corner, I have 4 questions. Public spaces often becomes more women friendly only if more women are using it. You can write it as an essay question. Public spaces often become more women friendly only if women are using it. And the Shakti scheme can confront the realities of a deeply patriarchal society. Discuss. The Shakti scheme can confront. Special provisions to women and children may not be a violation of the constitution, but essentially can result in discrimination. Do you agree? Give your view. So this is very good question. So do you think special provisions can result, even though it can result in a lot of benefits? Do you think it can also result in discrimination? You can give out your views. Women are just like men. It's a good essay question. So 4 questions, and also the check the master link, master checklist. Prepare these for the next year prelims 2024. It's very important. Know about Article 15. What is Article 15 Clause 3? Know about the different schemes in India for women, and what do you mean by positive externalities? This can be a concept in economy, but still, the article mentioned this positive externalities. You can simply Google and find out what do you mean by positive externalities, and what are some of the examples of positive externalities. So please do find out all those articles inside this. And moving on to the next important editorial is regarding the IIM bill. Very important. IIM, which is one of the most premier institutions in India for learning. So IIM bill, because the article, according to various studies, says that the administrative body, or the body which is actually controlling or the governing the administration in IIM has actually failed. They have actually failed on many matters, because it has failed to give out the periodic reports that many reports are expected by the government, which every IIM is supposed to publish in 3 years. So many of the IIMs are not done that, and the article says that majority of the IIM is facing many serious mismanagement in administration, especially the role of the directors, because in many of the IIMs, the directors are actually at war. So why is IIM one of the most premium institutions in India for learning is actually under radar? So why IIM is actually under the radar? So you can actually mark it as GS paper 2. You can write it from GS paper 2 education, because all this comes under GS paper 2 education for mains exam. GS paper 2 education, you can actually mark in that. And let's move on to the apply the IAS filter. Let's check out the important, because in 2017 was the year when Parliament passed the Indian Institute of Management Act. So IIM Management Act was actually, the Indian Institute of Management IIM Act was actually passed, and the act which hugely expanded the autonomy of the IIM. So nothing but IIM was actually having certain powers. So the 2017 Act expanded the powers of IIM. That is very, they expanded or increased. They expanded the powers of IIM. And there is something called BOG, which means the Board of Governors of the IIM to commission an independent review of the institute at least once in 3 years. So that is what I said. So the Board of Governors are supposed to give 3 years review, and you can see Only IIM Bangalore has done this. So where is the professionalism? What are the other IIMs doing? So this is the reason why the 2023 bill seeks to take back from the IIM the powers that government gave in 2017. So now you can say that, very easily say that IIM had some powers in 2017, and it increased the power of the IIMs. And now in 2023, the bill, it is actually trying to take away the powers that IIMs actually controlled. So it actually means take back the powers. So you need to take back the powers of the IIM. By the way, do you know how many IIMs are there in India? It's very important that you know how many IIMs are there in India, and what do you get. You Everybody knows what has actually been taught in IIM, and finally, once you graduate out of the IIM, what you become. It's something that you know. If you don't know, please find out. And how many IIMs are there? It's very important that you know it clearly. And regarding the 2017 was an extraordinary, because all the key appointments regarding the chairperson, the board members, you can just see the board members, the director, and the chairperson of the coordination forum were all left to the board of governors. See, the chairperson, board members, the director, and the coordination forum's chairperson, everything was controlled by the board of governor, and that is the reason why IIM assumed a lot of power. So now 2023, most of the important powers, a new entity to have big powers, which is nothing else called as the visitor. Who is the visitor? It is the President of India. Very important. The President of India is actually coming into the picture. So what is being done? Let's check out quickly. The powers of visitors, or the visitor. It creates the post of visitor. The President of India is actually will be visitor. The visitor will appoint the chairperson. Very important. Just like many of the bodies, national bodies, the visitor or the President of India will appoint the chairperson of the BOG. So the BOG will now be appointed by the President, one nominee on the selection committee for the director, and the chairperson of the coordination forums for the IIM. So visitor position is actually come into place. He or she will approve all director appointments. The visitor can initiate any review. Very important. The visitor or the President of India can take any review, any inquiry into the affairs of the institute and remove the director on his or her own. So that means majority of the directors, as I said, you take a look at many directors. I am Rohtak, I am Ahmedabad. You see that the directors, the administration is actually having a lot of issues. So that is the key issue that everybody talks here. The directors, the admin is having a lot of problems. They are at war with the system. So visitor will have the power to review an inquiry. So very, very important point. Please do remember that. So that was all regarding the powers of the visitor. So I'm giving you a question. The notion that government control is harmful to the functioning of an education system is flawed. Give your opinion. So do you think that when you have more government control for an education institution, it is very harmful? Do you think? Give your opinions. No public institution can be exempt from the principle of democratic accountability. Essay question for 125 marks. And for next year, please master checklist. You should know the IIMs IIMs of India, and also about the IIM amendment bill is something that you should be knowing in detail. So that was this editorial. And moving on to the next important one is climate finance adds another layer of inequity. It's the inequity to climate change. So you should know that whenever you talk about the climate change impact, one thing that you will understand, the climate change impact, that is the word I'm adding here. It is the climate change impact. You should know that there are some, basically, the developing countries and the developed countries. And most often you know that developed countries contribute more towards the climate change and the climate problems. But the problem is that some of the developing countries which contributes very less to the climate change are often sharing the big burden of solving the climate change finance. So in this context, you should know, what do you mean by the concept of climate finance? What is climate finance? Very, very important. You should know what you mean by climate finance. So why is that the developing countries take the burden of the developed countries which have created damages to the climate and environment? So understand it from, this is a clear cut article on GS paper 3. GS paper 3, environment, climate change, etc. So please read it from that perspective. Let's apply the IAS filter and let's take the most important points from this. So you should know that countries in where sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and South Asia have historically contributed the least to global warming. So that means these countries have contributed only least to the global warming, yet they are bearing the bigger brunt of climate disaster. That is what I said. They take up a lot of responsibility. Countries in North America and Europe have contributed and continue to contribute the most. Very important. They are contributing. North America and Europe are contributing the most and are the creditors of debt crisis. So large fraction of the funds. Large fraction of the funds for climate mitigation adaptation in the global south. So you can please mark some of the funds that is actually being coming come from international multi-climate funds such as Green Climate Fund. So what is the Green Climate Fund and the Clean Technology Fund? So majority of the funding comes from Green Climate Fund. So know it for the prelims perspective for 2024 exam. Please try to understand what do you mean by the Green Climate Fund and the Clean Technology Fund. Very important. Please do know about this. And it also talks about some concept called as Climate Vulnerability Index. Where is it? What is it? Climate Vulnerability Index. And this index is calculated by the Notre Dame Global Adaptive Initiative. Very important. Such questions come for the prelims examination very frequently. They will ask you, the Climate Vulnerability Index is actually released by which? Notre Dame Global Adaptation Initiative. So what does it do? It combines countries' exposure, sensitivity, and capacity to adapt to climate change. And the risk of debt distress is based on the International Monetary Fund. So there is IMF. Next is IMF. What is the report? Debt Sustainability Framework Report. Very important. The Debt Sustainability Framework Report is actually based on IMF. They can even ask this question in the prelims. Which of the following are correct? So most of the countries in debt distress is actually the sub-Saharan Africa. Very important. So know about this climate concept. And I have to shoot the questions here. What is climate finance? Very, very important. You will have to find out this. What do you mean by climate finance? Do you think developed countries have a moral obligation to subsidize developing countries? So you have to discuss this. What role do international financial institutions play in climate finance? Discuss. This is also an important question. What role do international financial institutions play in climate finance? Discuss. So for 2024 prelims examination, find out the master checklist or the MC list. I call it the MC list. Which are the sub-Saharan areas on the map? What do you mean by global? What is the global average emission per capita? What do you mean by reforestation? You must have heard about deforestation. What is reforestation? What is Green Climate Fund and Clean Technology Fund? And what is Climate Vulnerability Index? So these are some of the important things that you should be knowing about all this. So I think we are done with today's class, and I hope you liked the important session. So if you're a beginner who want to start your civil service preparation, download LearnStroke IAS app and watch Kickstart IAS just $5.99. You can watch 25 plus videos and start learning IAS without preparation, without anybody's help. And do check out our Cloud9 2024 online batch, which is starting in August 26. And do if you're interested, also know about we have an integrated prelims and mains test series completely online, and super mentoring. If you want only mentoring, talk to me. Definitely feel free to contact us. So do subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to receive the contents, and check out the Telegram channel for free content. And if you want daily current affairs, check out IS Current Affairs by LearnStroke in the Insta channel. If you want to talk to me, have some interactions, message me at arjun@learnstrokeapp.com. You can also call WhatsApp for the indifferent enquiries also. So once again, thank you so much for all the people. Do share and subscribe and keep listening to LearnStroke IAS classes.